A property appraisal can cause some anxiety because it can make or break the deal. When you sign the contract, you have already agreed to pay a certain amount that the seller has approved. However, if you're getting money from the bank will require an appraisal so that they know exactly how much they are able to lend you. And today I'm talking to Shawn Brown, who will walk us through that procedure. Welcome, Shawn.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you for having me. Yes, so I am an appraiser. I'm a chartered valuation surveyor. My company is called Atlantic Real Estate Advisory Services, AREAS. And as Margaret said, I'll just walk you through the process, how we value properties, because it's not just we take numbers from thin air. So once we get the instruction, we would have to inspect the property, the interiors and exteriors. We would get a lot plan, and that process can vary in terms of the time based on the size of the house and whatnot. So once we have that information, we look at certain factors that determine value. Number one is location. Location, location, location. A lot of value, not just in Bermuda, but just generally, the location is the most important thing. Then we would observe such things as the size of the property as well as the condition of the property. Other factors we look at is the market. So for example, in our current market, as people will know, there's a shortage of quality inventory. So therefore, property values may be a bit higher than they were, let's say, 4 or 5 years ago. And once we get all that data, we analyze it, and we analyze it using comparable evidence. So comparable evidence is when we look at sale transactions of similar properties, what they sold for, and then use that to determine the value of the property. So for example, we look in properties that have sold in similar type neighborhoods. So if we have an instruction for a property in a high value neighborhood area, we would look at comparables in similar areas, and then we take into consideration the other factors such as the size of the property and condition.
So tell us the importance of location, location, location.
Thank you for asking, Margaret, because it is important. The best way I could explain it would be, let's say you had two properties, the exact same lot size, the exact same square footage, interior design and whatnot. One property was, let's say, in a quiet neighborhood, ocean views, next to a golf course. The other property, let's say, was next to a busy road, a very densely residential area. The one with the views in a quiet neighborhood would be valued at a higher rate, would be valued higher than, say, the other property because it would be more desirable. And the market determines that people would pay more for this particular properties in certain locations than they would in others.
So how do you go about valuing a condominium when it's in a condominium development with quite a few, and some people have taken more care than others? Some have new windows, some don't, some have major renovations, others don't. How do you decide?
Well, usually if it's an instance whereas first, if there have been historical transactions of condominiums in that development, time frame is relevant as well. Let's say if we saw some comparables of units that have sold, and we're aware just based on photography that were basic fixtures inside and out. With the refurbished condominium, we would know that, okay, well, based on this market evidence, this is going to be valued at a much higher than the historical sales.
Okay, yeah.
And another way we can look at it as well is utilizing a rental analysis. So therefore, if somebody were to purchase a condo for an investment purpose, based on the refurbishment, obviously it would be rent at a higher rate, and we capitalize that to sort of determine another way to determine value. So there's different ways we look at condos, especially in this market with a shortage of rental properties, and people are purchasing properties, condominiums for investment purposes. So that's one way we can look at it.
So when the bank asks you to do an appraisal, what is the turnaround time generally?
Well, it all depends on the workload. Usually we tend to say 7 to 10 business days. However, that can vary depending on firm and whatnot. But for me, it's usually 7 to 10 business days on average. If I'm busy, I'll just add another couple, 2 or 3 business days. But that's generally the time from inspection. Some instances it's difficult to get access to the property.
So if a buyer doesn't agree with the appraisal, or they would like to think that they could borrow more from the bank, which would mean the appraisal would have to be higher, do they have the right to request a second one?
Yes, because you brought up a good point actually. It's not an exact science, value in properties. It's an opinion of value, and it's based on our analysis of data. So I believe you can ask the bank for a second opinion, but before you do so, I always recommend that people, if they have access to the report, to look at the report, particularly with the comparables, and to note the types of properties they use to compare the property in question, as well as the date of transaction. Usually we try to keep it within 2 years. However, based on historical data, let's say if similar properties have sold, but it has been, that's 3 or 4 years ago, we would include that in the report, but it may not have as much weighting because again, market conditions also dictate value as well. So.
And market conditions now are just crazy.
Yes, ever since COVID occurred, everybody's scratching their head, but particularly single-family homes in quality neighborhoods. From my knowledge, in terms of talking to people in the industry, people tend to bid higher. So again, this affects value because that becomes a comparable that we would utilize. And if comparables are noticing a certain trend, when we value the property in question, that would have an effect on the value.
Yes, I hope so. I think that's very necessary.
Yes.
Thank you, Shawn. That has been very interesting.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me. I always like to provide knowledge to people. You know, knowledge is power, and all the best.
It surely is. Open doors, open opportunities. Thank you for watching.